Good afternoon, everyone. There we go. And welcome to Gaston County's 9th Annual Manufacturing Week. We're excited to celebrate the strength and innovation of our manufacturing community, a cornerstone of our local economy. I am Julie Roper, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Gaston County Economic Development Board. Today's Development Roundtable brings together local leaders, partners, and experts who share a passion for growing opportunities here in Gaston County. We're proud to highlight not only the impact manufacturing has on our region, but also the collaboration that makes our communities a place where business and talent thrive. We would like to extend a huge thanks to Adam Hawthorne and Choate Construction for sponsoring today's event. And I want to thank everyone for being here and looking forward to an engaging and insightful discussion today. Our panel this year includes Jonathan Brewster with EDP NC, Lauren Berry with Maxis Advisors, Rachel Brumfield with Allen Tate Relocation Services, Dimitri Dunas with REPI, and Chelsea Valentine with Gaston County Workforce Development Board. I'll let each panelist share more about their roles and responsibilities during their presentations, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussions when they get done. We'll go ahead and start off with you, Jonathan.
Apologies as I make my way over there. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? I usually have a pretty loud voice. I have a cheerleading background, so if I am hurting anybody's ears, let me know. So thank you to Gaston County EDC for inviting me out here to talk about what we do with the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. I know that's a mouthful. We call it the EDPNC. My background specifically is mostly in Japan. So I spent about 10 years over there in various roles, ending up working for Fujitsu and supercomputing. And then I came over here to head up the North Carolina Japan Center at NC State University for about 5 years. During that time, I got tied into the economic development community because part of my role was assisting with Japanese projects, and they were coming into the state to check out all there is to check out in North Carolina. And was there for about 5 years, and then I made the switch over to doing economic development full-time at the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, EDPNC. In Japanese, it's even more of a mouthful. It's North Carolina Shu Keizai Kaihatsu Kiko, right? So I even just don't even say that when I say it in Japanese. I'm just EDPNC. So I've been with EDPNC now for about 2.5 years, and it's really rushed by. I work with so many wonderful people, and I have the distinct privilege of continuing to work with Donnie and Alicia and with Parrish at the Gaston County EDC, and we do so many wonderful things, and there's such a crack team, and they're always on it, so I'm very fortunate in that regard. So in terms of the EDPNC, for those of you who are not familiar with the organization, we were founded just over 10 years ago to contract under the Department of Commerce as a public-private partnership. Now, why was that something that was done? Traditionally, economic development was handled directly through Commerce, but it was identified that we needed to be more nimble. We needed to have an organization that could move quickly, that could act dynamically, and Commerce could oversee the projects that were coming in once they were ready to be able to talk about the various support aspects of projects. I wanted to do a few highlights, and I'm sorry, I guess I'm not even on my present. Do I press something for my presentation? Just over? Oh man, that's way too big. I don't like that. So I'm going to do a very truncated version of the Why North Carolina presentation that we normally do when we're engaging for the first time with prospective companies and with consultancies, site selectors. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir, right? I'm actually not originally from North Carolina, I'm from Hershey, Pennsylvania. You know Hershey's chocolate? First job, Hershey Park.
Nice.
And so I really still have, even though I'm very happy in raising my family in North Carolina, I think it's a wonderful place. I still have that sort of outside looking in because I didn't grow up here. And that's why I'm still, I think, perhaps so impressed with all that there is to do in North Carolina, all the benefits we have. So just some highlights from 2024, and this is normally not how I like to do presentations. I have a lot of metrics. I like to walk around and talk to people, but I'll try to stay focused here. In 2024, we had 16,555 jobs announced, 94 wins in Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties, which we're very proud of. 140 project wins, and about $14.8 billion in capital investment announced. So those are the kind of things that we like to see, but we're never satisfied with, right? We want to keep getting companies here, good companies with great paying jobs in communities that want them and want to invite them into their framework and their community. So let me see if I can catch up on my end here, because these are not linked. So this is a high-level view of the state. Obviously, we have a population of 11 million. The way that I talk to companies and consultancies is about half of that is actively in our labor force. A lot of times, companies and consultancies will, wow, that's a lot, right? And it is, and we're growing that. It wasn't that long ago when it was 5 million. Now it's 5.5. We have 451 people moving to the state every day. That's not including tourism. That's people actually coming to the state and living here. And it makes us the 9th most populous state in the union. We're one of the fastest growing states, and we have this, a big part of our pitch, I suppose, is that we have such an affordable, high quality of life here. Even in my short time at the EDPNC, I've seen more companies asking about that aspect as opposed to maybe more of the technical aspects of projects. Will my people be happy? And yes, they will. We have so many things to do in the state, and we really do like to focus on that. This is actually kind of a funny graphic. So we have this big radius here. You see there on the East Coast, 11-hour drive time. My question to our research and marketing team was, who's going to be out there in the ocean driving? But you get the idea, right? This 11-hour drive time, that can reach 150 million people, potential customers, right? And this is something we talk a lot about. We're about equidistant between DC and Atlanta. We have the beginning of the coast-to-coast I-40, right? It goes from East Coast all the way to the West Coast. And what are the north to south ones? I-95, I-85. That's why we have so many production logistics companies here, is that they can get anywhere, right? And we talk about that a lot. We have 2 deep sea ports. I know it's a little bit hard to see, Morehead City and Wilmington. We have 3 intermodal hubs. The ones that I wanted to focus in just briefly today with are, we have the intermodal hub that is at Charlotte, right? That handles over, I think, 200,000 rail lifts every year. And we're also about an hour away from the Greer Inland Port, just across the border. They just had a big expansion, I think, this year, and it's, I think, 300,000 rail lifts they can do, right? And the function of that is that you can get from deep water ports all the way out to these inland ports, offload your product, get to where you need them to go. Either that's at your production facility or off to your customers. 6th busiest airport in the world at Charlotte. So these are the kind of things that we talk about when we're speaking to companies. Business climate, right? So even though we do like to talk about quality of life, we want to talk about the nuts and bolts of operations in the state. For new companies especially, they want to really understand how they're going to be taxed, what are the materials going to cost, how much is it going to really take to have successful long-term operations in the state. So you can see all of our target industries and operations here. And this is a very high-level view, so I'm not going to get into each of these, don't worry. But, you know, if you were to ask anybody outside of the state, you know, what is North Carolina known for, right? Even though I think this is very reductive, they might say life sciences. We have a lot of life sciences presence in the state. This happened starting back in the 1960s with Research Triangle Park, right, which is a very innovative idea at the time. And we have a lot of life sciences companies in the state, over 840 life sciences companies, We're the #1 biomanufacturing hub in the U.S. This is a new statistic that just came out from the research team. Almost 6,000 biomedical degrees are awarded every year in North Carolina from our R1 research institutions, which I think is incredible. But there's another industry I wanted to hone in on here is the food and beverage industry. Food and beverage industry I know is especially important to Gaston County, right, and especially with food processing. And we have 1,245 food and beverage manufacturers statewide. We're in the top 10 nationwide in terms of the size of this industry. 21 of the largest 50 food and beverage companies in the nation are in this state and doing operations, which is such an incredible number. I don't come from a tax background, but we have to talk about these things, and I'm glad that we get to talk about these when we're discussing operational costs in the state with companies and consultancies, because we can tell a great story here about taxes in the state. We're very competitive in terms of tax structures. We have bipartisan support. That's really the secret sauce for economic development, I think, in North Carolina. There's many wonderful things, but we have bipartisan support. We have that at the state level to support economic development. We have 2.25% corporate income tax. Some of you might know this is going down by 25% every year, so it's another 25% off next year. It's going to be completely phased out by 2030. We have no gross receipts tax in the state. We have no state level property tax. We have a very low personal income tax. This is phasing to 3.99% by next year. Our combined is also very competitive, 7% state and local. With the 7th most competitive unemployment insurance tax, no inventory tax. These are the things that companies and consultancies want to hear, right? Because this is very intentional, and it's been going on for now a number of years. There are people in this room, I'm sure, that remember when the corporate income tax here was much higher, right? This is an intentional thing that was decided. And also, and I think we're getting to this, I'm maybe skipping ahead, but we are the second lowest unionization rate in the country. You know who's beating us? Anybody? South Dakota. That's the only state that has lower unionization than we do. Another thing we talk about, a lot of companies want to know about lease rate in the state. We have almost 40% lower industrial lease rate. Now that's statewide. So anyone in here in commercial real estate will know that can vary, right? The closer you get to urban centers, it's going to be higher. Get more out to rural areas, it's going to be a little bit lower, but that's the average that we see. Electricity costs are 30% lower. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the portfolio that's been invested in by our energy providers of all the different types of ways you can generate energy has been a very intentional investment for many years. So we are very competitive there. Construction costs, even with all the stuff that's happening right now in terms of supply chain, is still 17% lower, especially when you get to the metro areas. And then again, the unionization rate, 2.2, second lowest in the country. South Dakota is the only one who beats us. And we have the ranking of the second best business climate. We have #1 state for business from CNBC. Those are things that are nice to say, but we always have to keep doing our best to maintain it, right, and to grow it and to make sure that people still want to be coming here and investing in our state. So we're here to talk about manufacturing, right? And manufacturing and production takes up the bulk of our projects statewide. And we understand that when we say manufacturing, that can mean many things. We can go all the way from line manufacturing, right? These are roll up your sleeves type jobs to make certain things that may not be that complicated but require a lot of attention, all the way through additive and advanced manufacturing. And we're starting to see more of those kind of projects going into additive and advanced manufacturing. A lot of that has to do with AI, right, and automation, and making sure that we're getting ahead of that. We have people that are being educated in those areas that can manage those systems and make things more efficient. And you can see that all the subsectors we have here are fantastic. and probably not surprising to anyone here. We have so many people in the workforce in food and beverage and agriculture and life sciences, but we're also seeing other subsectors starting to grow. So, talking about advanced manufacturing, what's really important, I think, from the projects that I'm working and managing in advanced manufacturing and in many different types of projects, but is our network of our community colleges throughout the state. This is really, I think, the crown jewel of North Carolina, that we have the North Carolina Community College System. We're here right now, right? Our customized training programs, we were the first state in the nation to do this starting back in the 1950s. We're still the best. And I talk about this all the time, that through working with the North Carolina Community College System Division of Workforce Solutions, our goal is always to bring in companies, hire the people they want to hire, train them the way they want to be trained, and get them into your operations as quickly and efficiently as possible, and for either free or extremely low cost, right? We talk about that all the time. Big shout out to Center for Advanced Manufacturing, because wow, what an impressive facility. We have approximately 15,000 students enrolled statewide studying programs like engineering technologies, right? This is, again, advanced manufacturing, mechatronics, machining, more into that middle part there, and other industry-specific certification programs. We're still the #1 state for manufacturing, and we're very, very proud of that. We've already gone, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is really something coming from Pennsylvania that I really like to see, is the fact that you can do so many things in the state, no matter what you want to do, no matter what your hobbies are. This is the way we attract businesses and their workforces here, right? You like the mountains, we have them out west. You like beaches, we have them out east. You like lakes, we have a lot of those, right? Any of those things, you can do it all here. Just hop in the car and go, which we really, really like. We're a very affordable place. I think we're still around 5 or 6% lower cost of living compared to the nation, so I'm really happy about that. And then getting a little bit focused in more on our area here where we are today, we have lots of recreation sports teams. So it was the Honey Hunters, and now it's the Ghost Peppers, right?
Yes.
Here? Okay, Ghost Peppers. And I mean, nationally acclaimed restaurants, Barristers, the Esquire Hotels, wow, so good. And Webb Custom Kitchen, and breweries. Cavendish just got a big award, right, not too long ago. These are the type of things that we talk about in addition to the nuts and bolts of projects, right? So if anyone has any questions about that from what I've presented today, I'm happy to do that during our panel discussion. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Two quick introductory notes, because this is personal for me in some ways before I get into my presentation. The last time I was in this room, I was here for a very exciting announcement. Noel, who is, of course, in Apple Creek, was announcing, along with the governor and the Secretary of Commerce, their decision to locate here in Gaston County. And my firm had the privilege of working with them on their site selection and incentives advisory. So obviously they've got their big open house this week, and I'm so excited to see that facility finalized and get to celebrate with them. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, and I have the privilege of doing a lot of speaking engagements, and usually I'm kind of coming in as a visitor, right? But I am in Charlotte, and not only in Charlotte, I live in Gaston County, I live in Belmont, so I'm not offering any advice or perspective that's not at least a little bit local. Granted, I'm not from Gaston County, I'm from Ohio, but I've been here for several years and really made it a home. So I hope that that helps with some of what I'm going to talk about today. So my subject today is a little bit different for like a site selector. I'm going to talk about how to utilize public-private partnerships to create product and real estate tax base in a community. And I'll say off the bat, I think Gaston County is doing a really nice job with this, but I want to highlight some of the things that our firm looks at and thinks about with a certain section of our clients. Very quickly, by way of introduction, if you haven't worked with Maxis before, Maxis actually was founded in Charlotte almost 30 years ago by a former economic developer, so most of our team comes with that local economic development background. As I mentioned, I'm from Ohio, so I spent several years on the local side there before coming to the private side, but our firm works all over the country in site selection, labor analysis, incentives advisory, a little bit of compliance, and then real estate advisory with our parent company, Foundry Commercial. So many of you will know Foundry from their orange signs in the market, or some of y'all might know Dave Hanna, who's here, and I will just talk about our footprint really is across the East Coast, Southwest, and very recently all the way out to the West Coast, and we continue to grow. So very exciting, but we're based here in Charlotte. So what I want to talk about today is proactively creating good product, some common obstacles that we see when we talk about this in communities that might not have a base like Gaston County does, how to understand the economic benefits, when does this make sense, when does it not, and then how we think about creating a win-win structure for the clients and the communities that we work in, because we live here too, and so we don't want anything to be one-sided. So a couple of highlight examples. We've got one actually here in North Carolina that I'll mention. This is the Southridge project out in Bessemer City, and I believe there's still space available. Yes, Dave, if you need some space, see Dave Hanna. But this is a project that Gaston County supported with the tax abatement, and so as Dave is working to market that building to clients, that puts that building at a competitive advantage versus some of the other buildings in the greater market that might not have an abatement. And so that lowers the operating costs, and that's something we always look at for our clients when we're locating them. But we've done this in Gaffney Industrial Park in South Carolina. We are just finalizing a very large industrial product in Florida, in Lakeside, Florida. We worked with the community and the state to build a significant loop road that opened up multiple million square feet of potential new industrial space. So we're finalizing that. One other area that I'm really excited that Foundry is kind of leading the way creatively is we're seeing a lot of office to industrial conversions. We've done several in the greater Charlotte market, but they're doing a lot of these in Texas right now. So the one listed here, the Plano Industrial Complex, was a teardown of 300,000 square feet of Class C office space, and they're doing 3 or 4 more of these in the greater Dallas area now. And that's an area we've all heard since COVID, we have too much office space, right? So our CIO likes to say we're solving that problem by tearing it down and replacing it with a product that is more in demand in those markets. And we've been able to do that with some creative support from the communities where these projects have happened. So how to think about proactively creating good product. We, again, thinking about this from a benefit perspective for the community and for the client, the majority of our clients, and you have probably heard this, all of my clients think that there's an existing building out there that is going to be ready for them today. Unfortunately, that is not always the case, especially if they are a food or chemical manufacturer, or something that requires a really specific building design, but they always start with a building search. And so if you have available product, you're much quicker to market, and that's a huge benefit, as well as putting some of that burden back on the private sector in terms of the level of equity and financing that's required for a spec building. That's a lot of risk. So if you are creatively allowing other developers to take on that risk, you're getting the benefit of having available space without taking on the risk of all of that debt. Again, we're seeing that a lot of the good sites are taken. I know our development team sees a lot of issues. There's a lot of hair on some of the sites that are left, and so if you can push that to developers, that also will make your community much more attractive in cutting that timeline down. So this is a case study. This is the Loop Road project that I mentioned in Florida, and this is just an example of how we're thinking about not only the benefits, but the costs that go into putting a project like this together. And so you'll see that we're looking at direct jobs, Indirect jobs, we make some assumptions based on the space that's projected, whether that's manufacturing space, logistics space, and office space. We look at impact to residential development, to sales tax, to construction jobs, to all of those other factors that go beyond the ultimate jobs and investment that end up inside of that building. And so this next slide shows the projected job creation schedule for that building. And we know we're actually quite a bit ahead of what we even had projected. And I think this was put together back maybe in late 2022 when we originally were starting to apply for this funding. But since that time, those buildings have been built, they've started to lease up. And so it's a really great case study, not just for the developer who was able to get this product built, but for the community that has seen a lot of growth as a result. So a couple of common discussions that we'll have when we're bringing a new project into a market. We don't really understand the ROI, and this is pretty common with certain types of cost-benefit models that are really just focused on end users or tenants for those buildings. And that's really the traditional focus of a lot of economic development, and it should be. You want to understand the long-term permanent jobs and tax base that's going into that space and not necessarily the building itself. We've not ever done this before, so there's no precedent, and sometimes, especially in a smaller community, that's a really difficult political challenge. And then maybe there's not any tools for spec development. And so the way that we think about this, we're talking about, again, we want to look at a win-win. So we want to reduce the risk, not just for our client that we represent, but also for the community where they'll land. And so one of the things that we do, and we encourage our community partners to do, is really vet the developer. Vet the project. Do they have a track record of success in this industry, in this product type? What is their capital backing? Are they local? Do they understand the market? And again, our parent company likes to say we only play home games, so they will only develop projects in the markets where they have brokers and they have an understanding there. So if you have a product like that, where you have an understanding of the community, then you can feel more comfortable that it's ultimately going to be a fit. Focusing on hard infrastructure. This is something, and I think about workforce development this way too. This is an investment in the community, and if that developer, that project leaves, that investment remains. And so that is a much more safe route to go, putting water and sewer lines in, roads, new turn lanes, things like that, because those are going to have a long-term benefit even beyond the proposed use of that project. And finally, make it performance-based. This is no surprise. This is North Carolina. There is no money up front for anything. And so if you have, whether it's an abatement or a tax grant or tax increment grants that get paid back over time towards specific costs, those are all ways that can make this a real win for the community. On the other side, you're providing value to the developer by making the projects more competitive. And I'll be honest, we've all heard about interest rates and the effect that they've had, particularly on real estate development. We've had a number of projects in our pipeline that were canceled because the numbers just don't add up. And public support can be one way of closing that gap, especially if it goes towards something that's an off-site cost. Again, reimbursement for hard costs. And then you can also become a partner in navigating the regulatory side of your community. And this has benefits for the community as well, because then you have developers who are doing things the right way the first time, and everybody can move quickly. So with that, I'll take any questions during the panel, but thanks again for having me, and look forward to the conversation.
It is big. We love Photoshop, don't we? Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Rachel Brumfield, and I serve as Vice President of Corporate Services with Howard Hanna Allen Tate. We recently rebranded. Y'all probably have been seeing the green signage going up and all, so we are in the throes of that right now. I've been with the company for about 8.5 years, which in relocation years are kind of like dog years. Let's just say I've answered more questions about schools, neighborhoods, and communities than I can count. Now, let's just be clear, I am not a realtor. I get mistaken for one very often. I am a certified relocation professional, which means that my focus is not selling and buying homes. It's helping people and companies navigate the entire relocation process from start to finish. Whether it's policy consulting, employee support, or coordinating with partners across the country or around the world, my job is about making moves smoother and smarter. What excites me most about this role is that I get to sit at the intersection of business growth and people's lives. When a company decides to relocate or expand, it's not about just the tax packages or the utility map. It's about their people and making sure those people don't just move to a community, but actually want to stay and thrive. When companies are scouting a region, they're not only asking about infrastructure and incentives, they're asking, can our employees picture their lives here? Can they see their future of their families here? And that's where relocation professionals bring value. We help tell the people story, showing neighborhoods, schools, lifestyle options, and helping employees navigate the stress of a move. And if you've ever moved a family across state lines, it's not fun. You know that it's not a small task. I like to joke and say that people can change jobs, bosses, duties, even have different commute. But if you change their veterinarian or their grocery store, you're in for some problems. We're also seeing a real shift toward employee-centric relocations. Gone are the days of the one-size-fits-all policies. Today, companies are realizing that what works for a 25-year-old single engineer probably isn't going to work with a family with 2 kids and a dog. And believe me, the dog and the kids have the strongest and loudest opinions about where they're moving. At the same time, affordability and housing availability, as we all know, are top of mind. Families want to know, can we find a home that fits our budget? Are the schools strong? How long will my commute last? And that is where we step in by helping them transition to a smoother transition and having the companies with support and retaining talent once the employees arrive. So from a relocation standpoint, Gaston County really does check all of the boxes. A growing skilled workforce, thanks to our wonderful community college, more attainable housing compared to many metro areas, and a quality of life that's really hard to beat. I like to say we've got the best of both worlds. We've got the energy and opportunity of a thriving metro with the comfort and space that families are craving. That combination makes it much easier for companies to recruit and keep the people they need. Now, how do I partner with economic development agencies and companies? Economic developers do a phenomenal job telling the story of infrastructure, locational advantages, and overcoming obstacles. My role is, again, to bring the people piece to the table. It's been said that companies locate for 2 things: to make money, of course, and also to avoid risks. It's the avoidance of risk where we overlap and really complement one another. I highlight housing, schools, and lifestyle, the things that employees and their families care about the most. I support HR leaders directly, offering community tours, answering everyday questions, and connecting transferees with relocation-trained real estate professionals who can guide them through buying or selling a home. Together, this creates confidence. A company doesn't just know that they can locate here, they need to know that their people will want to live here. For me, success has always been about the relationships and impacts. If I can help a company attract the right talent, if I can help a spouse find that right neighborhood or a child find that right school, if I can smooth the transition so that the new job feels like an opportunity and not a disruption, then I know I've done my job well, which is not unlike site selection processes that Gaston EDC is known to handle in world-class fashion, as evidenced by the many wins announced by this very organization. At the end of the day, it's not just about real estate, it's about people. And as I often remind my team, if you can keep people happy through a move, you can probably solve world peace. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you for to the EDC for organizing this. It's nice to be here, and it's nice for me to be here as maybe a client of everyone, because we are actually tenants. We've moved in into GDP about 12, 13 years ago, and we're now going through an expansion. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our company and hopefully finish off with a few reasons as to why we settled here. The name of our company is REPI. It actually stands for taking resin and introducing pigment to it. And that's basically how we started. We started as a pigment company into plastics. We were founded in the northern part of Italy. And let me go on to the next slide here. So a little bit about REPI again. We're a global company. We have 8 manufacturing facilities around the world. We are privately held, a staff of over 200 folks, and about 80 million in turnover. As I mentioned a second ago, we were founded in Italy, and we are now headquartered in Switzerland. So we always like to talk about our vision, our mission. Basically, the way I summarize it is that we create value-added products for our customers, of course. That includes R&D, prototyping, manufacturing, everything that goes along with additives that go into plastics. We are the leader in the world when it comes to liquid additives for plastics. And so thank you all for also enjoying your beverage in a plastic water bottle. This bottle does have our product in it, so you're supporting the community as well. As I mentioned, we were established in Italy in 1973, so we are 52 years old now, and in Gorla Maggiore, Italy. So think of the northern part of Italy, north of Milan, just east of Lake Como. So very similar to where you were describing North Carolina, right? We have the foothills of the Italian Alps. We're close to the ocean. We have Lake Como, which is maybe 20 minutes from where we are. So you could go skiing if you want. You could go to the beach. You could eat at a fabulous restaurant on the banks of Lake Como. Or you can go visit Milan in about 40 minutes from where we are and visit the Duomo or the Galleria or any other famous site there. So, and the area is really well known for manufacturing as well. There's a connection to North Carolina, to this part of North Carolina in terms of textiles and equipment manufacturing. So when it came to moving to the U.S., and I'm not going to go through all of these here, but you can see there are some major milestones that are shown on this slide. As I mentioned, we are liquid colors for thermoplastics as one type of plastic. That was in 1980. In the early years, we were supplying pigments, basically colors that go into shoes. Probably not surprising to a lot of you that are into shoes, and knowing that a lot of the famous brands do come from Italy. So 1997, we entered the plastic packaging, the bottles that you're enjoying your water in at the moment. We moved our headquarters in the late 90s we actually moved in the late 90s to Lonate Cipino, very close to where it was founded. And it wasn't until a few years ago where we moved our headquarters to Switzerland, to Lugano, which is the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, just north of Italy. We have facilities in Moscow. That was opened in 2005. In 2003 is when we established business in the U.S. in Charlotte. And the way the story goes is our founder was traveling to the U.S. And at the time, the majority of our clients were in the Midwest, as you might expect. This is where, this is manufacturing, the Rust Belt, automotive industry, and a lot of plastic manufacturing, plastic and rubber. Rubber was invented in Ohio, I think. So we had a huge customer base in Ohio. Again, also supplying the shoe industry, we had customer base in the New England area because shoes were still, back in the 80s and 90s, were still manufactured in New England. And so our founder, Mr. Angelini, traveled to the U.S., and I think he actually visited Detroit maybe in February, and he said, no, I don't think so. And then so we started looking at the map. He had some contacts from Italy that were here in the area here, related to selling equipment for textile, because Italy is known also for making some of the world's best equipment, especially when it comes to textile manufacturing. So he was introduced to North Carolina and immediately fell in love with it. And it was for all the reasons that you mentioned, Jonathan: the location, the quality of life, the climate, the airport, the proximity to ports, seaports, inland ports. And this is where we decided to establish our roots in early 2000. We had a facility in Charlotte that was basically just an office facility, a warehouse. We were distributing products. We were manufacturing them in Italy at the time, and we were distributing out of Charlotte. And then it was time for us. This shows where all our locations are. I didn't mention some of the other ones, of course, Thailand, Singapore, Germany, Liverpool. This is where we have all our other manufacturing facilities. Of course, Italy's our flagship manufacturing site. The U.S. is the second largest. It is the fastest growing. So we expect to catch up and surpass our sister plant in Italy very, very soon. And so in 1997, we started distributing products through a distributor based in Maine called PAT Products. As I mentioned, we established in 2003 in Charlotte. And in 2012 is really when we ended up coming to Gastonia. And it was, again, an introduction to the area here. The park was just being developed. I think we were the second to move into the park. And it was just as this meeting is today, an example of the symbiotic relationship between the community and business. And our founder knew exactly that this was the right place for us. Even though we really didn't have any clients in the Carolinas at the time. Again, most of them were in the Midwest, and we had some in the Southwest as well. So we decided to build our plant in 2011, and we moved into our plant in 2012. This was it back then in 2011 at, again, at the Gastonia Technology Park. You can see some of the photos here of the plant. I don't know if you guys have ever driven through. I'm sure a lot of you have. You probably have seen this building. This is our building. And we are now going through our expansion. Within a decade, and at the time when Mr. Angelini decided to build this building, people were saying, "Are you crazy? How are you ever going to fill this building?" And then at the time, he was also building the building with the idea of expansion in mind. So he was always thinking that, this last wall, the exterior wall, let's make sure that it's a wall that we can open up and expand the building. And that's exactly where we are now. Within a decade, we have outgrown our facility. We've grown at double-digit rates for the entire decade since we started here. It's been great. It's been great. Business has been great. We're very grateful to our community. We're very grateful to, of course, to our clients, our customers. We, when we first moved here, very few people knew who Repi was in our industry. Now we're the brand. We're the brand. We're the go-to brand. And now we're going through our expansion. And this is it here. The building is almost finished, as you can see. Our general contractor, as representatives are sitting in the room here. It's been a great experience for us, so thank you to Edifice for their contributions and their support in making this happen. But it's just like as it was when we first started, this process has reaffirmed our commitment to being here, because our fastest growing customer base right now is actually in the Southwest. So we do have a heavy concentration of customers still in the Midwest. We supply the automotive industry. That's probably our single largest industry. But we also have a lot of customers in the Southwest. So when we were looking at expanding, we were thinking, okay, do we move to the Southwest? Do we move into the Arizona area or Texas area? And we decided not to. and we decided to stay here, thinking that this was still the right place for us to be. And again, it had a lot to do with the relationship we have with the community. I can't say enough about Donnie and his team. I remember when after we decided to stay here, Donnie arranged a meeting for us to meet a lot of the stakeholders, a lot of the regulators, and these are folks that were going to be having an impact on permitting, et cetera. And this is way before we even had plans or anything like that. And at that moment, I'm sitting around a room full of people that were just making introductions just to put a face with a name. And I decided, or realized, I should say, that this is the right place for us to be. And it's been seamless. It's been really seamless. So it's been great for us. We're very grateful that the support that we get from the community. And we're hoping that within the next month and a half, we'll open up the doors to our new facility. And I'm jumping a little bit ahead. As you can see, I'm a little bit slow with the clicker right now. But again, this just talks about the reasons why we decided to be here originally. I've mentioned most of these. And of course, why we decided to stay here when we're going through the expansion. And as I mentioned earlier, the support from Gaston County, Donnie, his team, the access to government and regulatory agencies. And of course the grants are great, but I can't say that the grants alone were the deciding factor, right? That's great that we had those grants, but several other factors went into the decision making for us. And that's really all I had to share with you. Again, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to be here and share with you our thinking and our experiences.
Hey everyone, I am Chelsea Valentine. I am the Business Service Representative for the Workforce Development Board here in Gaston County. Let me skip on past that. So I have been in this role for 6.5 years. I think our Workforce Development Board is pretty unique as we are a singular county. And the reason why I mention that too is because in the state of North Carolina, there's 20 Workforce Development Boards, and we're one of 3 of the only singular county. So most other boards, they cover maybe between 5 to 7 counties. So I feel like it's an advantage that we get to just focus just on Gaston County. So we're hoping to keep it that way as long as possible. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of labor market information, not too in-depth because I am not the expert matter on that, and then I'll talk about our services and programs that honestly all the businesses can tap into, but anybody in the community, it might affect you one way or the other. So this is just some comparisons to some of our neighboring counties. So Gaston County, we're doing pretty good with unemployment, the unemployment rate. I know it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but we are sitting at 3.8%. The state of North Carolina sits at the same, so we're right on par with the state of North Carolina. Some of our neighboring counties, like Lincoln County, they're always a little bit lower. They're sitting at 3.2. Cleveland County at 4.3, and Mecklenburg County 3.9, but kind of looking more at the numbers instead of just a percentage. So Gaston County, we have almost 120,000 people in our labor force, and close to or around 4,500 that are unemployed, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not in comparison. Lincoln County, so again, theirs is lower, but they only have close to 49,000 in their labor force with 1,500 unemployed. So the numbers are just drastically different. Cleveland County, kind of the same thing. They're smaller as well. And then, of course, we look at Mecklenburg, which is a lot bigger, and they have over 672,000 in their labor force. So a big difference in that, and they have 26,000 unemployed. The new numbers will come out I think on Wednesday. So these are as of July 2025, so they're pretty current. So just kind of wanted to put that out there so you can kind of not just look at the unemployment rate, but look at really what the numbers are. And I don't know the exact figure, but I know for the amount of openings in the county, we don't even have one person to fill per opening. So that's how tight it is. So obviously we know that manufacturing is continuing to grow around here, not just at the establishments, but I think just the awareness of it as well. And I think obviously a lot of it's EDC, doing that, and Gaston County is heavy in manufacturing, so it is a big focus from us. For the board, we serve all industries, but manufacturing does take up a lot of our time. So I'm just going to highlight some of our services, and then later on you can ask me any questions you want, either today or meet up with me afterwards. So the services that I provide through business services through the board, of course we do recruitment events. I host a monthly job fair, and then usually it's multi-industry, but once a year, and this week we do one that's just manufacturers. So those are heavily attended. It was hard bouncing back from that after COVID, but the last like 2 years or so they've just grown immensely. So we do a monthly one, typically at our local library, and then also at the Hilton Garden Inn. So we're really thankful for those partnerships to allow us to use their space. We do a quarterly job fair, actually inside the prison. We just started that a little over a year ago. It's been pretty successful, so we do that, and we see people that are within 1 to 120 days of release. So just kind of put it in perspective, we'll go in there on a Wednesday, and one of the questions I'll ask one of the former offenders is, when are you being released? And they'll say like Friday. So it's very, very real. So it's been encouraging to them, I think, and the prison staff itself, that we're bringing employers in there and also resources to help them transition into employment, hopefully as soon as they get out or even before, because they're always looking for work release, employers too. And the candidates, they know that it's case by case, or you're under no obligation, obviously, if you go in there you have to hire somebody. That's not the way it works. And they know that as well. They're just grateful for the opportunity to speak with you while they're still incarcerated. So we're always looking for new employers, just putting that out there. And then most of you know that the NC Works Career Center in Gaston is relocating. So once that's back open, we'll start doing smaller recruitment events as well. We have a couple programs under work-based learning, incumbent worker training, on-the-job training, and work experience, and I'll go into those a little bit in more detail. We offer transition services, so it's under rapid response. Basically what that is if an employer, a business is laying off, whether it's a mass layoff or a small one, we come in and we can either bring employers with us or just resources to help transition those impacted employees into either employment, or if they're looking to go back to school or anything like that, just to kind of help make it as seamless as possible. We'll also bring somebody from unemployment to actually answer those questions for them, because unemployment's all online and by phone, so that helps them a little bit of ease too. Okay, so incumbent worker training program. Some of you in the room have worked with you on this. So this is the program that really keeps me super busy. So basically what this is if you identify a training need in your company, and it truly can be almost anything, anywhere from like CPR training, Excel training on a machine. It's truly whatever your need is, whether it's for one person, 10 people, 20 people, whatever that might look like. You identify a training need, you bring it to me, we'll fill it, I'll help you fill out an application, and then we do a county contract after we get all the figures and numbers and all that. It's basically saying, you're going to do this training, and we're going to reimburse you that cost after the training's completed. So depending on our funds, because it is different every single year, each business in Gaston County is eligible for up to $10,000 a year. So $10,000 a year and $40,000 lifetime. You do not have to use $10,000 at one time. It could be, I've seen $500 applications, $2,000, $10,000 at one time. It's just really whatever you're looking for. And we try to hold your hand as much as possible to kind of make that as easy as possible. It's not a ton of red tape, but sometimes it looks like that. I know everybody's always busy. So that one, again, that is something that really keeps me busy, that I would love for all businesses to know about and tap into, because again, you are eligible for up to $10,000 a year. And basically, you just have to be in North Carolina in business for a year, current on all your tax obligations. And then the people that you are training, it is not new people coming in. It's somebody that's been there at least 6 months. So these are for your current labor force. So the next two programs, I kind of put them together. They're very similar. They do have some differences. Work experience and on-the-job training. So if you... So for work experience, I'll start with that. If you have, usually we're looking at entry-level positions, whether it be in the office, on the floor, whatever that might look like, and you identify that need, we can put an agreement in place, and then we can place somebody at your business and cover their full salary for up to 6 months. So the only catch to that they do have to be in our program. They don't have to be currently in there, but you can refer them, and we can see if they're eligible for our program. So there's some stipulations there. But with that, again, so the work experience, this person is technically an employee of our contractor, and then the hopes of this, if they complete a full 6 months with you, and we're covering their salary, the workman's comp and all that, that if they worked out for you, that you would want to hire them on permanently. So this is just sometimes to help somebody with maybe a barrier to employment. Maybe they just are trying to get some work experience, and this is a good way for them to be able to get that. And it's a good way for the business to say, okay, well, yes, it's my time training them, but the wages are covered. So it's kind of a win-win. And then the people in the program, it's good for them as well because we provide supportive services. So for example, if you require steel-toe boots for that position, we'll pay for that if they're in our program. And there's some other supportive services around that, case managers. So if they need some coaching on maybe showing up on time or anything like that, we can handle that. Or you can, as the host site, but we can handle that as well. And you're under no obligations to finish the 6 months. If they're truly not working out, we can cut ties at any time. So you don't have to feel like if you sign an agreement that you have to keep this person for 6 months. We hope it works out, but we know that's not always the case. So for on-the-job training, it's very similar, but they will be you'll hire them on just like you would anybody else. And then we just have a contract in place, and depending on the size of your company, we will reimburse their salary 50 to 75% for up to 6 months. So if you're an employer that has 250 employees and below, then we'll reimburse 75% of their salary, and then 250 and above, we'll do 50%. So that's another full 6 months. Again, they're your employee, but we're just covering those wages, reimbursement portion of it. They will still get the same supportive services. So if you require steel-toe boots or anything like that, uniforms, anything that's required, you let us know and we will purchase that for them because we don't want them to have to pay anything out of pocket for that. And there's some other supportive services, case by case. They may receive a gas stipend until their first paycheck, one-time car repair, daycare vouchers, anything to kind of help them get into the workforce and be able to stay in the workforce. So that was kind of a quick overview. So if you have any questions afterwards, or like I said, we can set up any. We have a team that usually comes out too. So I usually talk about these, but we also have people from NC Works. Richard from EDC will come out with us, K through 12. So we can come out as a team, or if you just want to talk about these individually, I'm available, phone, email, whatever's best for you. All right, thank you.
Now I'd like to open it up for questions and discussion. So if anybody has any questions or something you wanted for any of our panelists or any comments you'd like to make.
You all mentioned AI and kind of advanced manufacturing. So I'm curious what type of trends or impacts that you're seeing in Gaston County in regards to AI and advanced manufacturing.
I can talk about at the state level. I'm old enough to remember Laverne and Shirley. Do y'all remember Laverne and Shirley? Okay. And what's the opening like? They're working in a factory, right, with those bottles. I think that we're at an inflection point now and we've seen inflection points before. It's just happening at a quicker rate now. In preparation for this panel, actually, I started going back and reading some of my notes about the manufacturing industry in the U.S. and why we had this big boom of manufacturing and everything after World War II. And it's interesting to look at that because I think a lot of people have forgotten about it or perhaps didn't learn about it in school, and the fact that after World War II, where was the only place really in the world that still had its infrastructure intact? Right? The United States. And that really set us off to being able to utilize the efficiencies and scale and scope that we had developed over the war, right? But over time, we've seen, even way before AI was a part of the equation, more of those large-scale, undifferentiated manufacturing operations going to other places simply because of cost, right, of material and labor. And this is something that is a story now more than half a century old. And we're seeing that kind of inflection now with AI in terms of automation, work holding, things like that. And I think eventually what we're going to have is this conversation about what does work mean in terms of, why you're here, why we're here. I know it's a little bit philosophical, but that's the most dangerous year in a person's life is the after they retire, right? So I think that conversation is coming, perhaps in our lifetimes. In terms of in the interim, what we're seeing across at least my breadth of project portfolio is additive and advanced manufacturing is utilizing AI more. But it's also requiring people that have the education and expertise on how to manage those systems, which is why there is a very intentional direction right now, especially at universities and community colleges, UNC school system, to develop those programs and to get people in them. And so until that conversation comes, and hopefully we're in a great place in the world when it comes, we're still going to need a lot of people to be able to manage those systems. But I think differentiation in manufacturing is becoming more important than it ever has been, for companies to differentiate what they do.
Anyone else want to comment on that, or if we have any other questions, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, how have you seen activity this year? It's obviously been pretty tumultuous with tariffs and uncertain interest rates hopefully coming down, but from a bigger picture perspective, how's activity been relative to other years, and how do you see that changing going forward?
It's a question for you. What about tariffs?
No, Dave and I can talk about this
Yeah.
in the office. But,
Right. That's true.
Was that for me or for Jonathan? Yeah.
Okay, all right, I try to give it to Laura.
No? He knows what I think.
Yeah, of course. No. So actually, Laura and I were talking about this before the panel. Nobody knows in terms of where tariffs are going to lead us. And peeling back a layer from that is uncertainty. And businesses like certainty. They want to be able to plan. So one of two things, in my view, are going to happen. Either we're going to somehow get used to this new paradigm, and businesses are going to have to make decisions anyway. Or we're going to reach some kind of island of stability somehow, whether it's a ground-up approach, where the powers that be understand that we need some of that in order for the economy to be okay, or whether that is businesses saying, listen, we've been dealing with this now for a year. We have to grow. We have to get to this next stage. But I wish that if I had the answer for tariffs, I probably would be.
Wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd be here, but I'd probably be, videoing in from my Learjet or something like that, because it's something that everybody's dealing with. The only things that we can do in the state that we're doing our best to do, especially in economic development, is, and this gets back to the people conversation, relating with people on a one-on-one basis, saying, we're here for you, and we will help you in terms of figuring out how you could succeed here long-term. Not just to land here and then we say goodbye. I mean, where's Melanie? Melanie, where is she? My colleague, Melanie Underwood she's the regional existing industry expansion manager. I mean, we talk about this all the time. When we work projects, we're not closing the project and saying goodbye. We want to make sure that there's continuance there. We will make sure that you have what you need in the future. We understand that macroeconomic factors are something that we don't have control over. But what we do have control over, we're going to control and help guide you. And that's all we can do, is connect people to resources and be their advocate. And that's what our CEO, Chris Chung at EDP&C, talks about all the time. Customer service. Just got to be their partner. That's the most important thing. It's all we can do.
I'll add to that a little bit just for the broader group. Because, Jonathan and I talked about this, and it's been a challenging year for our firm. Not that we haven't had a lot of activity, but we've had very few decisions. We've had a lot of projects that have been put on hold, projects that have been canceled just due to the uncertainty. And I think that we're seeing that more in the middle market sector, which are at the core of our clients. You see the announcements from the big data center firms and really, Whirlpool and the big pharma companies that kind of have the ability to make these long-term decisions without as much regard for things like tariffs. Not that they don't play in, certainly, because we're seeing that, but for the middle market companies, that uncertainty has a very different impact on their planning. And so we've had a lot of companies that, we are on a call to literally discuss their announcement, and they're going to city council next week to approve their incentives and make this announcement. And they said, we can't do this. We can't do this. There's too much uncertainty. We've had 5 or 6 of those happen this year. And so we're seeing a lot of activity. There's certainly a lot of interest, a lot of site visits, lots of tours, but very few commitments relative to previous years. And so we're hoping as we get further past some of these impacts, we see interest rates coming down a little bit. Maybe we see some stabilization with tariffs, that comes back around. But certainly it's been a rocky year.
I have a question for,
I just want to add on to that. So we know the tariffs are delaying projects. With that, the ones that are on hold, they are going to come back around. They're going to have a very quick time frame to make an announcement. They're ready to go. Demetria kind of talked on this. Gaston County brought all the players together when it comes to building inspections, local leaders, if we need to do rezoning or just permit approvals. What is the importance on that? I feel like John, a couple of y'all could talk about that. The importance on the timelines to get those approvals done. I feel like Gaston County does it really, really good. So tell us how we compare to other counties or other states, and where could we do better?
Sure. Gaston County does a great job. It makes a big difference. That is something we look at. We're looking at that now. We have a very large industrial project in the southeast, and they have a tariff impact. They want to be here yesterday, and I know you all hear that a lot. But we're working with our internal, we have a user development services team internal at Foundry, so we're partnering with their civil engineers, and they're doing permitting analysis for all of our final sites and talking with those local officials and putting together basically a risk analysis for the permitting as it relates to the whole project timeline. That is critical, and that's going to be a big decision factor for them because they need to have this plant built and they can't get caught up in a rezoning or some other type of approval process that's controlled locally. The state and federal permits obviously are a little bit different, but just having a team that has a good track record of being able to permit projects quickly and being user-friendly and solution-oriented, makes all the difference in the world. So that's definitely something that's worth a continued investment.
that's great.
That's a good segue, actually. I was going to say just one more thing about that. I actually worked at my first project that I closed is Lindahl here over in the city of Belmont. And I'm still really close with the person I worked with who was originally at the ministry for the country that was representing that company. He did such a great job, they hired him. And now he's the COO over there. One of the things that I ran into that really I think is a great example of what Gaston EDC is so good at, again, is this finding a solution, is we were running into something that hadn't been shown by the company until late in the process, and we needed to be able to make that item aware in the community and make sure it was okay. And I mean, it was something that potentially could have derailed the project, and it ended up not because Gaston EDC had a great solution, strategic solution for that got the community on board and comfortable with that item, and that was something that I didn't have to be concerned about. As long as I was collaborative and listened to people in the room that knew what they were doing in terms of that community aspect, it went wonderfully. And so that's big props to Donnie Parrish and Alicia.
I think we had another question over here.
It seems to me, in my experience, that one of the keys to Gaston County's success over the years has been the great job they do with product development. And I'd be curious, Lord, to hear your thoughts on what other communities are also doing well and that we can learn from.
Well, from my perspective, there aren't any communities in the Charlotte market that have done as good a job, especially with the kind of community-owned business park. We see a lot of really competitive land sites in South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina just has poured so much money. Almost every, even small communities, not even mid-sized communities, every small community has an industrial park that's got complete due diligence and infrastructure and utilities. They do a great job. Some other communities or some other states in the Southeast have done similar programs, but to be honest, right now, it's a lot of the good sites have been taken no matter what the state is, right? So almost every state in the Southeast, and North Carolina being one, is also going through a new process of certifying sites, identifying sites, doing due diligence, and that's really needed everywhere. So it's a continuous process. And so I'm curious and excited to find out what the next one is in Gaston County coming soon, I'm sure.
Donnie's working on it.
I'm sure he is.
I'm sure Donnie is working on it.
I was going to keep us close to the 1:30 wrap-up, but I had one question I wanted to ask Dimitri about what are some of the positive determining factors that played in a role of you reinvesting in Gaston County? You had mentioned factors earlier, and I was wondering if you could dive a little deeper into that.
Sure. I have to go back to just the relationship that we have with EDC. We're not project managers when it comes to construction, so this is something that is very unfamiliar to us, and with the uncertainty, of course, there's some significant risks that we're taking. And knowing that the community and EDC really had our interests in mind and a way to find solutions, we knew we were going to run into some challenges and hurdles, and we knew that EDC was going to be there to help these, and we did, in fact. And you know, even when Sean was here, it was great when there was something we weren't really sure of. I could always pick up the phone, call Sean or Donnie or Richard, and they'd say, you know, talk to this person, talk to that person, and it helped us through the process. Knowing that that was coming was a big factor in the decision to stay here. We made the decision, of course, before, you know, touching a little bit on the tariffs, before tariffs came into play. But looking back at it, even if it were today, we wouldn't have stopped with the decision. We would have moved forward with it, and we would have moved forward with it full steam. Of course, they've impacted us. Of course, a lot of our products end up in consumer products. And consumers, I think you mentioned it, the uncertainty, the way I always equate it to, or the analogy I use is, if you're driving through a fog, you tend to tap on the brakes a little bit, and that's what consumers are doing right now because of the uncertainty that the tariffs are. From a business standpoint, we're kind of balanced. Of course, we've had some negative impacts from them, but there's some positive things that have come as a result of the tariffs. So I'd say we're more or less neutral, but overall, we do see business, consumers sort of tapping the brakes, and there's some uncertainty. Having said that, we would not stop at all. We would have continued the process even if we started it today.
That's great. I really wasn't trying to end us on a EDC infomercial, but it's just great to be a part of such a well-oiled machine, is what I always say. Unfortunately, Donnie couldn't be with us today, but he runs a great organization and runs a tight ship and has a great staff, and we're really appreciative of all that they do for Gaston County. It's one of those behind-the-scenes kind of organizations, and a lot of people don't realize the impact that it has around all of our companies, and so it's exciting to be a part of that. If you'll join me in thanking Choate Construction, and also a big thanks to Gaston College, and obviously to our fantastic panelists here. And if I'm going to wrap us up, but if they have time to hang around and answer any more questions or something you want to ask one-on-one. But I want to thank you for starting out Manufacturing Week with us. We really appreciate your time and you taking the time out of your busy day to be here with us. So hope you have a great rest of your day, and please join us for any of our other activities that we have coming up for the rest of this week. Thank you so much.